Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about a new historical topic that brought the end of the Soviet Union, USSR, and the end of the Cold War between two superpowers in the 1980s and 1970s, which is the United States and uh, USSR, which is called Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. The invasion started in 1979 and ended in 1989 with the withdrawal of Soviet Union. A little bit of background on this topic. Afghanistan witnessed conflicts with the anti-communist al-Mujahideen, which is a group of people who were disagreed with policies of the communist government. Muhammad Dawood Khan was executed by the Soviet members in the Afghan army in April 1978. The President Muhammad was not a communist, but he did resist the sovereignty of the Soviets regarding his foreign policy. The new communist government targeted wealthy landowners and targeted the Islamic mullahs. And as a reaction or a response to this action, the anti-communist or al-Mujahideen started to appear facing the new government with this aid of Pushtan Gora lines. The political rise in Afghanistan. Two main communist parties took control of leading the war in Afghanistan with the USSR. And those two are Khalq Party and Parsham Party. Those two parties later on, they emerged to become the People Democratic Party of Afghanistan. And Nur Muhammad Taraki was part of it. Nur Muhammad Taraki contributed to the assassination of the President Muhammad Dawood Khan. Nur Muhammad Taraki was assassinated by Hafizullah Amin, who had relationships with the Soviets in 1979. Why would the Soviet Union participate in this invasion, or why they even would bother? The Soviets wanted to keep the control and power over Afghanistan. Some of the USSR Republicans were Muslim and bordered with Afghanistan, so which made Soviets more worried about losing their power over these republics and join Afghanistan. Soviets wanted to help the Afghanistan government to get rid of Mujahideen people and the anti-communists. Leaving the Mujahideen take control over Afghanistan government might threaten the power of Soviet Union and brought it to collapse. The beginning of the invasion on Afghanistan. The war started in December 24th, 1979. Insurgent anti-communists, which is called also the Mujahideen, had conflicts with the Afghani government regarding communism and anti-communism. The Soviets started to lose control over Afghanistan starting with Kabul in 1979. About 2,500 military forces were sent to Afghanistan with tanks, helicopters, and military advisors as well as equipment. The Soviet Union wanted to support the Afghanistan government to defeat this group. The Soviet invasion did not end until mid-February 1989. As we see in this photograph, two military people are shaking hands, which is the Soviets and the Afghan soldiers in 1980. What did Soviets did in this war, and what are some turning points? So, many outside powers supported either the Soviets or the Mujahideen seeking the spread of communism or anti-communism, such as Iran, US, China, and USSR by sending military aid and equipment. So, for example, the United States was against the communism, so they helped support the al-Mujahideen in Afghanistan to help fight the communism. With the support of the US, the Mujahideen rebellion started to spread all over Afghanistan. The Afghanistan war settled with 100,000 Soviet soldiers taking control over major cities of Afghanistan. They followed tactics and strategies to eliminate the Mujahideen by bombing countryside civilians who did support the al-Mujahideen. So the Mujahideen were able to neutralize the Soviet control by using anti-craft weapons provided by the United States to them. In 1982, it resulted in 2.5 million civilians ended up as refugees and 1.5 million escaped to Iran. and despite all the large numbers of people who were killed. What did the Soviets do to keep control over the Afghan war? The Soviet soldiers tried to keep an eye on the Afghani borders to prevent any military support for the anti-communists or the Al-Mujahideen. Examples like the borders with Iran. Iran used to be anti-communist and they sent some military aids to the Al-Mujahideen. Despite all the tanks and the bombs that Soviets used, the success that the Al-Mujahideen achieved was big, which is around 1985. Soviets were not able to take over the Panjshir Valley after 5 years of trying and fighting. Soviets used all of their military potentials such as gunshots, tanks, and helicopters, and all of that was useless in the front of the Al-Mujahideen. Invasion outcomes and the Soviets' withdrawal between 1985 and 1989. After all the success that Al-Mujahideen achieved, Soviet soldiers had a harsh time with fighting. Moscow started to think about withdrawal strategy or a plan from Afghanistan in 1985. In August 16, 1988, Moscow achieved the first plan or phase of leaving Afghanistan. Soviets did make a treaty to make Al-Mujahideen let them find safe route to withdrawal and leave Afghanistan and stop the war. In this photograph, Soviet soldiers leaving Kabul during the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan in 1988. What are the consequences on the Afghani war and the Soviets in this invasion? The Soviet economy was crushed due to the war expenses and all the loss they had. They entered Afghanistan with 600,000 troops and came back with only 14,500 soldiers. Central Asia republics started to leave the Soviet Union, which is one of the points that we discussed in the previous slide, why the reason why the Soviets had invasion on Afghanistan, just losing the power of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was dissolved in 1991. And another thing to mention here that the soldiers came back to from Afghanistan and they have many different diseases, and that was one of the reasons next to the economic reasons why the Soviet Union did dissolve in 1991. Afghanistan witnessed a really bad time after the withdrawal of Soviets. The Mujahideen started to fight under the name of Islam to kill civilians. That made students who studied, were educated, especially their religious education, were joined under the name of Taliban, which means students, a group that killed up to 1.5 million civilians and left some of them out of the country as refugees. And the withdrawal of Soviet Union from Afghanistan left a chance for the civil war and chaos to take place. Invasion consequences of Soviet and Afghanistan. Continuing with that, new groups of Mujahideen appeared. Taliban was one of them. They started to kill civilians and they fought among themselves due to the political and ideological reasons. People suffered violence and killing due to the extremist warriors like Al-Mujahideen. Mikhail Gorbachev found that staying in Afghanistan is a drain to the Soviet Union economy and resources. Even after the withdrawal of Soviet Union's troops, the fighting in Afghanistan kept going and even more aggressive. Muslim rebel was able to take control of Afghanistan in 1992 eventually. Going over some of the important points that lots of people were killed in this, and the Soviet Union was a loser in this invasion. Islam extremists allowed the chaos to grow much larger in Afghanistan even after the withdrawal of Soviets. Cold War ended between superpowers like the United States and the USSR, and the USSR was dissolved and did collapse over time. Soviet Union did collapse and happened as what they did expected because of the Afghani war. And thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my presentation, and I hope you have learned something about the Soviet invasion of